when do you observe these aggressive behaviors in your kids? So today's session, I'm just going to try to guide you along to think about why your kids displaying these behaviors, and at the end of it, I'll give you tips on how to manage it. Okay, so maybe you can type it in the chat and let me know, when do you observe this? Maybe, often before bedtime, or after a long day at school, or when you shifted to a new place, you go to grandparents' place. Is there like a trend? Because that will give you some information about how to manage these tricky behaviors, this aggression in advance. Okay, so welcome for those who just joined us. We are going to talk about what is aggression, why are kids displaying this aggression. In fact, do you know that there are four types of aggression, as well as how to manage them. I love to give you actionable tips, so I hope that you don't waste your time here. I want you to make sure that you learn something, okay, after today. All right, Clara said when they are playing. Okay, Clara, I want you to remember, later I'm going to talk about one form of aggression that considers children who are aggressive when they want to gain their rights, or they're very possessive over their territory, okay? Angeline, sibling rivalry, all right, when things don't go their way, when he's being told to do something or stop doing what he's currently doing, then the child becomes very aggressive. Okay, so take note of what you're writing down, because when you keep this in mind and I share with you the tips, you can then put them together and try to help your kids tomorrow. You should say during sleep time, okay? Means when I focus on the younger sibling. She said when he gets frustrated from being unable to get or do certain things, like he knocks his head on the floor and he screams. All right. Bugs Mini say when they don't get what they want, it's time for bed. Hitting friends in school when he doesn't get what he wants to play. Siblings are aggressive. Mala says kid will cry when she didn't want to do a certain things. When there's change in normal routine, when they're tired after school, when the brother plays with toys or being told to sleep. I hope that when I read out the responses of of our community of parents here, you start to realize that your kids are actually quite normal. Not normal in the sense that they are aggressive kids, but the times when they start to become aggressive are actually very understandable. Like, we know why they are acting out this way. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing. We'll just jump straight into, firstly, what is aggression? We just make sure everybody start on the same page and understand aggression are behaviors that result in either physical or emotional injury to either a person or property. Okay, so as long as there's a physical or emotional injury to someone or something. And do you know that there are two types of aggression? So the first type is the physical aggression. The second type is the verbal aggression. Yes, so verbal aggression like screaming, shouting, name calling, gossiping, or even swearing, threatening, these are verbal aggression. The other aggression is physical aggression. In other words, we call it violence. Physical aggression is violence, and this is what you observe your kids hitting, jumping at others, slapping, pinching, grabbing, or kicking. So now we know what is aggression. We want to find out, why do kids display these behaviors? So if they're hitting, kicking, grabbing, or using any verbal aggression, we need to know that they are sending us a message. They're sending us an SOS. Your kids are telling you, "Mommy, help me." Yes, it's a sign of skills deficit that your kids are still trying to work on the underlying emotional skills. How do we help them with these emotional skills? We need to first let them know that they are out of control. So why do we get so out of control when we don't get what we want, when your kids, when you attend to the sibling? And that is because it's a very natural response for humans to want to protect ourselves. What do I mean? Our ancestors from a long, long time ago, they have this tendency to look out for negatives or look out for danger during the world when they were hunting and trying to protect themselves and being territorial. So because of human adaptation along the way, now we are so worried about safety that we always look out for danger, and so these behaviors become a mechanism for us to protect ourselves. So I know it sounds very, very hard to understand, but the idea is that as humans, we have this natural response to go into a fight, flight, and freeze mode to protect ourselves. So when your kids see that they don't get what they want, stress builds up in their body, cortisol enters their bloodstream, they start to see it as a form of danger. So earlier, some of you said that when you ask him to shower and he doesn't want to shower, he sees it as a threat, he feels stressed, he feels that he doesn't get what he wants. So to them, they see these situations as a stressful situation, and the body starts to protect them by getting them to go into the fight, flight, and freeze mode. And in this case, today's session, we're talking about the fight mode, where they want to fight back, and that's how the aggressive behaviors come about. So which means that, when you change in a normal routine, the kids are not used to it, the body is still trying to cope, and then your child has no capacity and maturity to tell himself that, oh, it's okay, it's not an emergency, there's no need to work out, there's no tiger in the woods that we need to protect ourselves from. It's not easy for them to do all those, okay? So with that in mind, we know that our kids need our help when they have these underlying emotional skills that are still lacking, they're still not well developed. We need to first help them recognize their emotions. And these don't just apply to kids, it applies to us as well. So when you intend to yell at your kids, or you want to spank your kids because you are very angry, that is because there's lots of cortisol in your bloodstream. So you need to make the effort to firstly calm yourself down and tell your brain and body and say, hey, it's not dangerous, this situation is under control. Then the body will start to relax and get you out of the fight, flight, and freeze mode. So similarly for your kids, you need to help them become aware of their emotions first, then teach them these skills to override the impulses. So we need to be very conscious about our behavior. We need to know that, okay, I'm going to start screaming, okay, I'm going to stop. Yeah, this act of stopping and pausing actually helps the kids and us to be very wary of what are we going to say next and to avoid these aggressive behaviors, okay? And finally, when you can recognize their emotions, when they know how to override these impulses, then they can learn the social skills of interacting with others, interacting with you, his friends, and his siblings, okay? So now we know what aggression is, we know why they act out this way, so what can we do to help our kids? Firstly, there are 4 different categories of aggression. I'm just going to very briefly talk about them because I think that when you know which category it belongs to, it's much easier for you to help your kids. So the 4 categories, the first category is accidental aggression. So if you listen to the word accidental aggression, look at the word accident. So these are very unintentional forms of aggression, and it's likely a result of carelessness. For example, your child is very excited to see you. When he comes home, he just runs to you. He accidentally knocks over his brother's structure or Lego. So it's a form of aggression because you hit the structure and you cause emotional hurt to the brother, but it's an accident. It's usually a result of carelessness. And for situations like this, we don't want to blame the child for that because it's out of his control that he's accidentally kicking the brother. Okay, so this is accidental aggression. The second form of aggression is expressive aggression. So these forms of aggression, they are actually intentional, but it doesn't mean to cause any harm. So for example, your child is kicking sand to another child. So it is intentional, right? Kicking the sand. But the child has no idea that kicking sand will make the other child feel uncomfortable. So this is what we call expressive aggression. Or maybe your child is throwing a ball to you and it accidentally hit you in the eye, your glasses drop. So this form of aggression is because the child is trying to play and he thinks that it's fun, but he has no intention to hurt. So these are also times where we need to calm ourselves down to tell ourselves that no, my kids are not out to hurt me. It's just a form of expression, so expressive aggression. Okay, the third and fourth are the ones that I need you to pay attention to. Okay, so if you are doing something else, come back to me. So the third is hostile aggression, and this form of aggression has the intention to hurt. So it's intentional and it tends to cause physical and psychological pain. So for example, if your child is at the playground and the child sees that he doesn't want to play with the younger boys and he pushed the younger boys. So this is an intention to hurt the younger boy, to push him away. Okay, so it's usually a result of provocation, and sometimes you see the older siblings provoking the younger ones or the other way around, and they start hurting one another. So this is a form of aggression where we need to stay firm, and I will tell you later on, okay, on what you can do. And finally, the fourth form of aggression is what we call instrumental aggression. So it results in fighting over objects, fighting over their rights and their territory. So Clara, earlier on you mentioned about how your kids, they tend to be aggressive when they are playing together. And this is a very common form of instrumental aggression for children between 2 to 6 years old. So with this in mind, we know that they are not out to hurt another person, and that's how when we approach it, we will do it differently from the hostile aggression. Okay, so for those who have just joined us, I'm just going to summarize what I've shared so far. What is aggression? Okay, aggression is a form of behavior that hurt others, either physically or emotionally. There are two forms of aggression: physical aggression and verbal aggression. And we say that the kids are acting out because their bodies are meant to protect them from these threats and stressful situations, even though it's a perceived form of stressful situation. Okay, and we talked about the 4 forms of aggression, which is accidental aggression. We talked about expressive aggression. We talked about the hostile aggression and the instrumental aggression. So right now we are going to go into what can you do in the moment when your kids start to become aggressive. Okay, firstly, and the most important step, I mentioned it several times, you need to stay calm yourself. If you are going to react and based on your knee-jerk reaction, you want to pull the kids away with pulling is a form of physical aggression, it's violence, right? It's very, very ironic that you are doing that when you see your kids doing the same thing to the sibling. So you lose the moral high ground, what I shared in my Instagram post recently. So firstly, model non-aggressive behaviors, which means that you need to stay calm yourself and not let your own impulses control you. Okay, so one thing that helps is that you go down and speak to your child at the eye level and be very firm and act like the confident CEO of the family. So what do you say? We'll just go straight into hostile aggression. So if your kids are hurting and causing physical pain or emotional pain to someone else, we want to come in and let them know the boundaries. So you need to set consistent and firm limits to let your kids know that these hostile aggression and these behaviors are not tolerated. So what can you say? So I'm going to give you some scripts here. The words to use is, you can begin with, I won't let you. For example, I won't let you bite your baby sister. I won't let you hit your sibling. I won't let you throw the ball into your daddy's face, something like that. So I won't let you. This is how you can set your boundaries really firmly. And you know that during those moments, your kids are so dysregulated, out of control. They need somebody to help them feel in control. And if you are dysregulated yourself, it is very difficult for both parties to calm down and eventually solve the problem. So you need to be calm yourself and use these words like, I won't let you do it. What I do with my kids is I will tell them that this is not safe. For example, jumping off the chair at the height of the chair at the dining table, this is not safe. Standing up on top of the dining table is not safe. So I'll tell my kids, this is not safe. My job is to keep you safe. If it's not safe, I won't let you do it. So be very firm. The thing about setting limits is so difficult because many times we think that, we are either too strict, or we think that we need to be scolding so that they will learn. But really, when you are out of control yourself, it's hard to get your kids to find their own sense of balance and equilibrium in their emotional development. Okay, so I mentioned about staying calm and telling them, setting very firm limits if it's a form of hostile aggression. When they start hitting, biting, kicking, screaming, I won't let you scream. So be very firm. Even though the child continues screaming, don't worry, stay nonchalant, unfrazzled, just stay calm yourself and watch. When you're ready, then you respond. But if the kids are hurting one another, that is the time you need to pull the kids apart. If your kids are holding onto a sharp object like a pair of scissors, you would probably want to take it away from the kid immediately, because safety is our top priority. Okay, so we are done with the hostile aggression. We're just going to move on to the instrumental aggression, when kids very possessive, they want everything to themselves. That's because empathy is not fully developed in their brains yet, and that is why they start to become aggressive when things don't go their way, when someone takes their object, when someone just sits next to them. Okay, so sometimes to us it feels very ridiculous, but it's a very big thing to the kids, and we want to validate their needs and their emotions. So what we can do here is to solve the problem together with your kids. Focus on problem solving. So involve the children and hear every single one child out. Let them say how they feel. This is what I do with my kids as well. So let me just share an example. I think it was last week when my girl was very angry that my boy took away these specific parts of the Lego, specifically this Lego banana. And she came to me and she started whining and said, Big Brother doesn't want to give it to me. And when I asked Big Brother over, I make sure to hear his point of view and hear her point of view, to make sure that they hear each other out. And eventually, when she heard him telling her that he really wants it, guess what she said? So she said that, if you really want it, then you can tell me. We can solve the problem together. So I was there, I got a shock, because those are the words that I always say to them. We can solve the problems together. And this is also a result of me teaching them to always listen to the other party and come together as a family, that people are more important than things. Your relationship with each other is more important than the Lego banana. And in the end, she picked it up just because I've been doing it every other day. So I share a lot more in my siblings workshop. Okay, so if you're keen, you can go check out my website. But what I want to share is that the more we model it, the easier it is for them to learn how to manage these conflicts with each other. Okay, and they don't have to resort to aggressive behaviors to solve the problem. Another tip, since you have been with me for a while, is to try to use role playing. Okay, so when things happen at the moment, you set your boundaries, you bring them together and talk about it, you solve the problem, and role play it. So let them pretend it's okay. Let's pretend that you guys want this Lego banana. Can you snatch it now? So I'll get into pretend snatching, and I'll ask them, okay, so this is the wrong behavior. Can you guys show me the right behavior? So they will role play and show it to me. And this, conversations often end up with laughter and a lot of joy, because they think that they're having a lot of fun, but at the same time they are learning. Okay, so I hope this is helpful for you. And so I'll just recap about the how to navigate emotions part. Firstly, be very calm yourself. Secondly, you want to set your firm ground rules and limits, and if possible, bring the kids together to problem solve. Okay, all right, so I'll just go straight into your questions. I'd love to hear from you. Sandy asked, what if my 2-year-old is still not so mature with the words yet? I was waiting for this question. Indeed, when your kids are too young, they're not able to verbalize and get themselves seen and heard. So that's where you put the words in your kid's mouth. Okay, this is the time where you put your words in the kid's mouth by asking him, are you trying to tell me that you want this toy? You love this toy very much. So you are helping him to feel seen and heard, but at the same time, let him nod his head, or even if he cry even louder, it just shows that you got him, you understand him. Okay, so if your 2-year-old doesn't really understand, if it's not between siblings, it's just you and him, and he doesn't get his way and he starts to become aggressive, knocking his head on the ground, hold your child back and say, I won't let you knock. I won't. Okay, if you can keep it short, you can say, I won't. Or if your child starts hitting, right, you can let the child know, gentle hands. So keep it really simple, short sentences for your 2-year-old to understand. All right. Okay, let's see your other questions. Feltu said, I do say all this to him, but he still won't listen to us. He thinks it's fun. He will do it again. He will climb up and down. Even he fell down and he will do it again. Okay, this behavior is also very common, especially for younger kids. I want you to change your perspective when you see your kids doing something over and over again, even though you tell them not to. So firstly, if it's dangerous, you want to be very firm and bring the child down, hold the child, gently look at him in the eye. You like climbing is fun. Let's go to the playground to climb. So you want to redirect the child to let him climb all he wants at a safe place. Okay, but at the same time, I want you to understand that your child is climbing up and down could be because he's so curious about his own development and what he can do. He's very amazed by his own capability that he can climb up and down and he can fall. And this is something that's part of development as well. Your kids are learning. Second point I want to add is that sometimes when they keep climbing up and down and you react with a very big reaction, it fuels the behavior and the kids want to do it over and over again just to get your attention. Okay, which brings me to an additional tip. Okay, so thank you for being here again. I'm just going to share with you this additional tip for those of you who have stayed throughout, is that you want to focus on the good behaviors instead of the bad behaviors. What do I mean? During the times when your child is not climbing up and down, you want to praise him for not climbing up and down. Wow, look, you are sitting on the sofa and you're not climbing up and down. You know how to keep yourself safe. A lot of times when the kids are acting well, when they're reading quietly or when they're playing harmoniously, we don't say a single word. We take out our phone and we start taking a video and photo. But when they start acting out, we give them attention. So think about it. If you are a child and you miss your daddy so much, your daddy is always on the computer, not looking at you. But the moment you start jumping up or you start snatching something, opening drawers that you're not supposed to, daddy looks at you. Wow, I would want to be the child doing that because I get daddy's attention. So be careful how you offer attention to your kids. Make sure that you focus on the good behaviors as well when they are doing good, when they are quiet. Okay, go over, tap them on the shoulder and say, oh, you're reading quietly on your own. You did not disturb mommy and daddy. Then you move on. Okay, hope this is helpful for you. All right, let's see who's next. How can we prevent a child from accidental aggression? So accidental aggression is something a bit difficult to prevent. Like accidents are something you can't predict, right? So of course you can keep the room safe and make sure that there are no like dangerous stuff around. But really, I think if it's an accident, nobody can predict it's an accident. Okay. However, what you can do, Kyra, is to process this entire situation with the child, to let the child know that, oh, you know, if big brother is playing here with the Lego, you will want to run the other way. Then you can do a role play to get him to practice running the other way. Okay. All right. My 2-year-old always throw things at my husband or me when she's angry. How do we tell her that this behavior is not desirable? Okay, so for a 2-year-old who has yet to verbalize, I would think that this 2-year-old is very curious about what happens when she throws. Okay, if she's only throwing when she's angry, it means that she lacks the skills of trying to manage her anger. So even at 2-year-old, I will hold the child and teach the child how to manage the anger. So anger management skills, which is something that I inculcate in my kids from young. So now when Charlotte is very angry, I will just have to bring her to me and we'll start breathing together, and that's how she cope better. So for a 2-year-old, you can bring your child to you, and you know what I do with my kids is to breathe with their hands. So breathe in and out. Okay, it comes the parent, it comes the child. Okay, I teach this in my emotional regulation workshop. So what your 2-year-old can do is to practice breathing with you. Okay, when the child has calmed down, that is the best time to teach her not to throw at daddy, not to teach her during when she's throwing, because clearly at that moment the learning centers of the brain are all shut and it's impossible for her to understand why she cannot throw. So when she's calm, you can teach her that we throw balls into the basket, but we don't throw at people. So set your rules firmly. Maybe at that point, I will bring out a basket, maybe crush some newspapers and get her to throw and throw and throw. Okay? And you can even get her to explain to you, yes or no. Can we throw at daddy? If she says no, then you are slowly teaching her the skills. Okay? All right. What if the child doesn't want to apologize after pushing his siblings? Okay, this is a big question about apology. When we, as parents, we want our kids to feel responsible for their own actions, so we want to make them say sorry. But do you know that by saying the word sorry, it doesn't mean that the child is truly remorseful and that the child knows that what he did is wrong? Okay, what we want our kids to do is to know why they shouldn't behave that way, why their actions are causing pain and harm to the other siblings, and how they can make up for the situation. So in short, what I do with my kids is to get them to ask them this question. Okay, if they did something to the sibling and they're not happy, the sibling is not happy, I will say, what can you do to make your sister feel better? what can you do to make your brother feel better? And I'll get them to share with me themselves. So even if they didn't say the word sorry, but they went over to give a hug, it also helps the child to understand how their actions can make the other person feel better. Okay? How to teach that expressive aggression is wrong and should not be repeated. He says he wants to be naughty and laughs cheekily. So definitely we always look at the underlying reason. So it feels like this child is trying to get attention. Is the child getting enough attention throughout the day? Are you spending time with that child? Are you bringing the child out, or maybe spending quality time, not out, like spending quality time together? So if the child wants to be naughty and laughs cheekily, when we want to let the child know, I'm not sure how old is your child, but they need to understand that sometimes the words that they say, if your child is older, process it with them. Sometimes the words that they say will harm others. Okay, all right. How do we manage instrumental aggression with outsider? Example, the girl feels angry with someone coming too close to her. How to prevent an awkward situation? Okay, so if your girl feels angry with someone coming too close, also depends on how old the child is, but I will definitely equip my child with skills on how to protect herself. So I will tell her to tell the other person, even to the brother, I don't like it, please stop. So we've been saying this in our home. Sometimes occasionally I can hear them talking among themselves, and the little sister will say, I don't like it, and my boy is supposed to back off. But of course it doesn't happen all the time because they are still learning. So if you can keep thinking that they are still trying to grasp these skills, then you won't be reacting with harsh punishments. Okay, it is difficult. I can assure you that sometimes we feel very triggered by our kids' behavior. I just want to assure you that it's not a barometer of your parenting ability. So your kids' behavior, they do not determine how good or bad you are as a parent, but rather I want you to see as they are still learning, just like you are still learning to parent your kids as well. Okay, so give yourself some grace. Okay, I'll just take one more question. Let me see. My 4-year-old is rather whiny and cry rather than articulate or verbalize what is wrong, even though he's capable of it. How can I get through to him? Yes, okay, so when the kids are whining and crying, if this is their natural response, then you want to help them to give them other ways of coping rather than whining and crying. And of course, you cannot do this when the child is emotional. You probably want to do it after the situation. Okay, so how do you get the child to articulate and say how he feels and what he wants? There are a few ways. One, if you give prompts, right? You give choices, that's one. Other than that, you can get the kids to draw out how he or she feels. The third way is to share your own personal story, like, oh, I know how it is like. Do you know when mommy and daddy, we were younger, this happened to us, and I was so upset, I started whining and crying. Then grandmother came and told me that I can actually use my words to tell her and she can help me solve the problem. Something like that, to let the child see that they are not alone in this. The whining and crying is a form of communication, and it takes time for the child to eventually communicate with you well, and you have to equip the kids with those skills, because if you don't, it's difficult for the child to know what else to do. A lot of times we expect the kids to behave like adults, that they know that when they're upset, angry, when they have a bad day, they need to be able to calm themselves down and just get back on their feet. But even as adults, some of us can't even do that. So it's very unrealistic to expect a child to be able to manage his or her own emotions. Okay, all right. So thank you so much for coming for my IG live session. So this IG live is in celebration of my upcoming course from Yelling to Connecting. If you want to find out more, reach out to me. I just want you to end off and check out by telling me one thing that you have learned from today. Okay, so can you type it in the chat box? One thing that you learned from today. I'm very, very amazed at how you guys are asking such good questions. When you ask me about, oh, what do I do when the kids have instrumental aggression, or how do I help with accidental aggression, it means that you guys are listening. So I'm a very proud teacher, even though it's just been 30 minutes. All right, Rosalind said thank you so much, grateful for your tips. Thank you to remind us that we're still learning. Yes, Daisy. Yeah, keep calm and carry on. Recognize the emotions. Yes, Chrissy, stay calm all the time. Shirley said, glad you came. I will keep calm and parent. Yeah, so most importantly, you want to model the non-aggressive behavior. So if you feel that you are starting to exhibit physical or verbal aggression, so note that even screaming is also a form of aggression. all right, we can always take steps to stop our body from reacting, okay, to stop those knee-jerk reactions. Yes, I like this. Norm says, stay the confident CEO. Yeah, look at the kids at the eye level. I agree with this. Thank you for your sharing. Kids are still developing. Give them time. Keep calm. How our child behaves doesn't define us as a parent. Absolutely. So don't take it personally. And with that mindset, it's easier for you to help the kids rather than think that I'm a bad parent. I've had a long day at work and they're not appreciating me. Then you just go down the rabbit hole. You won't be able to help the kids with the problem solving. Okay, dancing, bouquet, say problem solving together. Very good. Give attention when they behave. Kids are still learning. Appreciate the advice. Okay, let the kids role play. Thank you so much, and I'll go for my next call, but I hope that you can continue learning and reading and improve, and we'll see you again next week. All right, bye bye.